Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today, as the title says, I believe the education system needs a bit of work. So what I believe is that the education system doesn't actually, at least in England, provide us with the experience and knowledge to actually be able to deal with normal day-to-day situations. Stuff like getting a house or something like that. They don't really teach you how to do that. They just kind of expect you to almost, I don't really know. So basically, I'm going to go in with a kind of big statement that your grades don't matter. Now, okay, yes, they do in varying on your career. The school often make it feel like they mean everything, that you need to have the top grades or at least very high grades to get into all the careers. Thing is, I want to be a director. My grades to someone looking to hire me would be the grades that I've gotten would mean exactly the same to what they mean to me. They are ink on paper, nothing else. My sixth former, the person who interviewed me for sixth form, said that my grades will only get me into the door, they will not get me the job. That's it. And if I can prove that I'm good at what I do through having videos and, you know, that I've directed things, music videos or films or so on. If I can prove that I've done that, then I get the job. The grades don't matter really at all. And hell, what if you want to do like independent art? Like what if you want to be an artist? Your grades for art, varying on what kind you go into, probably don't matter as much. Creative industry is more around what you can do over what grades you get. Grades are usually measured through, and there are very specific things that they mark you on. And usually you can't go too far beyond certain things. It's quite hard to do that. So like for instance, looking at my art, like when I did art in my art exam, something I found was I very quickly got drained of all of my unique ideas, because what ended up happening, like I got 47 in my coursework for my art, so not my final piece, my coursework, and I really think that's because it was draw a picture, finish it, quick, draw another picture as soon as possible. Because it was so much like that, I drained myself of all of these unique ideas. They were interesting to begin with, and then they just lost their inspiration towards the end. I also know a lot of people who haven't really relied on their grades for a whole lot of their life. This doesn't mean, like, don't try. It just means that if you get low grades, I don't know, if you want to be a doctor, then I think it should be best to aim for getting good numbers. But if you want to do like what I do, which is being a director, if you failed, like, I don't know, if you got like just a pass in like maths, English and science or something, that's not that bad. Because in the long run that doesn't really help you. If you want to be a director, you're not writing the scripts, that's if you're a script writer. But this kind of then moves me into my next point. They don't prepare you very well, they don't have very good resources. For instance, our school, we barely seem to ever have glue, good like equipment, and now we also have a printing budget. But our head teacher then spends a lot of the money implementing more bins into the school, which I haven't noticed any new bins. They've appeared on the corners of the courtyard. We even had a thing for a few weeks where everyone had to go out and do litter picking, but no one liked it, and then eventually it was disappeared. We just kind of stopped, I don't know why, but I'm guessing because it wasn't helping. But also, like, if you think about it, they keep shifting what you can actually get. So for instance, my brother's doing D&V. I have no clue how that's going to help him in the future, but anyway, I didn't do D&V. My school didn't provide it. It was the year, they provided it after I left the year group that could actually do it. So that's great. But also, think about sixth form. The sixth form I want to get into, and I have currently gotten into. If I wanted to get into that sixth form maybe a couple of years ago, like 1 or 2 years ago, yeah, I couldn't. I would have needed to have gotten a it's like a C to A star is what they put, but I think now that's 4 to 9, whatever. Something like that. In media, film studies and photography. My school only does media studies. Photography was taken away before I hit year 9, or when I hit year 9, and I don't think they ever did film studies. Now they also provide, one of my friends would have loved to have done this instead of drama, which was dance. There's also psychology. But in return they've taken a few of the other subjects away, like I don't think they're doing media next year. It's weird, they keep shifting this. As I said, this school has changed it, like my sixth form changed it because of the fact it meant that that to get students they had to hope that the students went to a school in an area where they provided those subjects. Otherwise there was no chance they could get in. And even then, they sort of don't really care about the grades. 4 to 9 is a massive amount. It's like, I think it was 5 4 to 9s. Basically, I need to pass 5 subjects. That's easy. You know, like just passing with a 4, that's simple enough. And like, getting a 9 doesn't really matter. If you get a 9, that doesn't mean it's going to take you in. They check, from what I know from the person who interviewed me, they check in the interview to see how much you actually are interested in this. So, for instance, when I came, he had asked me to bring anything that showed, like, any work or any ideas I had for something I want to do later on. So I came to him with a character sheet, 5 of the 6 main characters of the film series I want to do later on in life. He read that whilst I described it to him from memory. That impressed him enough that I got accepted, but he didn't really care at all about my grades. As I said, they're focused way too heavily on grades. As the country and all of that, we focus way too much on trying to go, these are the results you should get. These show that you are going to be successful. That is not what determines being successful. Grades are numbers or letters or whatever they are. They don't mean anything to us or anyone. Fair enough, yes, sometimes they look at certain things for jobs, but those really heavily vary on what job you're going into. It's hard to just go, yeah, you need English, maths and science to get a job. English and maths, yeah, sure, like you're gonna in most careers you probably do some form of maths and English, but like science doesn't, like, I don't know when people, like if you work in plumbing, if you're going to need to know, okay, you might need a little bit of chemistry, but I doubt you're going to need to know atoms work. In day-to-day life and the majority of jobs, you don't need to know what builds up atoms. I can see every now and then when they're trying to do something that would help you. Stuff like in biology where they teach you about disease and infection and so on. Physics where they're trying to teach you stuff about like braking distance and stuff like that with cars. That can be useful later on. But then they also have these really useless things that we don't really need to know, like adaptation and biodiversity. We don't usually need to know those for the majority of jobs. And then you have other stuff like English, like where we learn, what are we learning? A Christmas Carol Carol, Animal Farm, and Romeo and Juliet. I don't know how these are going to help me later on in my life, and I don't really know how they're going to help other people in their life. 2 of them are books and 1 of them is a play. Why do we do Shakespeare? Just a really random question. Why do we do Shakespeare? He's not an author, he's a playwright. Shouldn't we look at him in drama where we look at all the other playwriters? Yeah, I really think they need to try and teach us a little bit more about how to actually live in the normal world. Stuff like taxes, bills, loans, laws that exist in this country, and maybe our rights would be useful things to know. It would kind of be useful to know what laws exist in this country. Like, I didn't know until I heard an article about this that it's illegal to drink on, like, public transport. I didn't know that, and I learned that because a politician messed up. Other stuff as well, you know how I learn about what left wing, right wing, and how our how our government works? Do you know how I learned that? I learned that because I took history and we were trying to and my my history teacher took the time to try and explain how the Nazi government worked compared to our own, and thus explained our own government system. Why do we not have a lesson dedicated to that? If you didn't take history, or at least weren't in my class, you wouldn't know how the voting system works. There's also they're very restrictive on what they actually talk about as well in these PSHE assemblies, which, just to say, really don't work. Me and my friend were trying to talk about this because I was saying, oh yeah, and I was explaining the 2 examples of the only things I remember from these assemblies, and he actually couldn't remember which ones I was talking about. The ones I remember were the internet safety one and the knife crime one, because of the videos they showed us, in particular only 2 parts. One, with the internet safety one, was when this woman was running off and the person found her and hit her over the head with a rock, and when it hit her in the head, it's like a first person, so it was like a flash of light, and then it cut to the morgue, and it's like, oh, that would be a really cool transition for a murder film or something, where they get hit in the head, there's that flash of light, and then it cuts to and then it's like the lens flash from a camera taking a picture of the crime scene. I don't really remember anything else about that. And the other was the knife crime one, because they showed us a video where they were interviewing these people in the north somewhere, where they were, and they were like, oh yeah, so yeah, I have this machete and I've stabbed people with it. Oh yeah, my friends have been killed. And I'm like, you just literally incriminated yourself. I'm pretty sure by law these people can't just let you go. So yeah, so we were like, me and loads of other people were like, yeah, that is clearly fake. And yeah, we just don't remember them, because you sit in a hall for an hour looking at a board and not allowed to talk about it in any way, thus we don't remember it. If you just sit there and look at something that you're not interested in, you forget. Have you ever been to a boring film in the cinema? You sit there, watch it, and you won't remember anything of that film. You'll remember a few bits, but that's it. Because most of it is a teacher talking with something boring on some words on the screen. It's why I only remember the videos, because every now and then there's actually something interesting in the video, like some interesting bit of cinematography. But that is very rare. And in a way, like, I remember they were going, oh yeah, for this week thing we're going to do like empowering women, or showing, what's it called, spreading awareness of LGBT, where, when I pointed out, pretty much everybody knows what LGBT is. This is proof by the fact they showed us a video that was clearly meant for someone younger than maybe 13. But we all know what LGBT is, or at least what that video was trying to tell us, what it means. And so, yeah, but this is something that I learned is very interesting, and something that the school should take into note, along with any filmmaker that does this. on purpose because it's spreading diversity. You tell a group that they are not empowered. If you say to women, oh yeah, you're unrepresented, or say to someone in the LGBT community that they're a minority, all of a sudden, psychologically, you're actually having an effect on that person, making them want to be not associated with that group of people. By telling them they are a minority or underrepresented means that you're having an effect on them which makes them feel worse about themselves. This actually also works when even if you show like a group of people who are accurately or unaccurately depicted, it in both cases has a negative effect on that person. These are studies. But anyway, I'll leave a link in the description of the video that talked about this. It was mostly focused for Captain Marvel, but it goes into a lot of stuff. There's also other stuff where they're trying to make people feel like, oh yeah, everybody looks the same so no one is judged by having uniforms. They do realise that doesn't work. And the fact is that a uniform doesn't make us feel together, and actually can make it hard to judge. Judging people is something that people always do. We will judge people on their hair, their face, skin colour, their gender, what coat they wear, because there aren't restrictions on those coats, etc. If people came in normal clothes every day, then sure, there would be some judging, but you're gonna get judged in real life, like, obviously in real life. You're gonna be judged in the streets and at work in your normal clothes. Uniforms at school don't really help with that. What a non-uniform can do, if I was in school and I saw someone wearing a Firefly shirt, I would know that that person now I know that that person watches Firefly. And the way that they do it with this, like when Mufti does come round, it's not usually in a super good way. It's like pay £1, 50% goes to the school, 50% goes to a good cause. And there's some stuff, I remember the house that I'm in uses a tiger symbol. And then when it was like, oh yeah, we're going to support the charity Tiger, I was like, and it has nothing to do with tigers, it was women empowerment. And I was like, okay, I'm sure there was a better charity you could have gone for, but this one clearly had the name Tiger, and you thought, oh, it's our house mascot, let's go with that one. It just felt like way too much of a coincidence. Because at the moment, it's not really a big problem. One of my friends was pointing out that it would make sense to actually go for a charity like cancer research. But we don't, we never go for them. But also, it's like, we decide apparently all of the charities a year in advance. Meaning all of our money has gone to kind of representation groups and stuff like that, which can only do so much. They're more like side groups or trying to push for the government to do things, when in a way it's actually going in reverse. What I kind of love is the fact that it's kind of ironic that something like Black Panther or Captain Marvel is meant to empower these people, but actually psychologically has the complete opposite effect. I'm going to offer a solution, even though it's been 26 minutes, so I'm going to have loads of editing to do. I think they need to add a kind of like life lessons group, or class, or something like that. Something which teaches you how to do those things of how to pay taxes, and like taxes and bills, and how to get a loan. A very important one, because they always teach us about contraception, how not to have kids. They never teach us how to raise them. I think that's going to cause a problem in the long run. Because I know a lot of people, and I'm like, I would never want them to have kids, because I really feel like they would horribly mistreat them because they have no clue how to raise them. I don't know how to raise a child. How expensive is it? What do you need to do? How often, do you need to be with them 100% of the time? What do you feed them? I'm guessing that weird baby milk thing that they all show in adverts, but it's kind of like, why is that good? What's the difference between that and normal milk? you get the idea. It just feels like they could teach us stuff that would actually be more helpful through these life lesson classes. But I can hear some of those people's arguments. But how would you have time for the other subjects? Simple. Make them a side thing for years 7 and 8. But for year 9, you let them choose whatever subjects. I think they do this in, they actually make them choose in at the end of year 9 for year 10, but I would say make them choose at the end of year 8 for year 9. For year 7 and 8, what you would do is you would have all of the subjects, and actually you would no longer have certain ones that can be switched in and out. You pretty much try to put as many subjects into the curriculum as possible for every student to choose from. This means that it's not like 1 year you can do photography and another year you can't. As in, it's there the entire time for every year, and maybe it's only stuff is added to it, but nothing is ever taken away. What you would do for year 7 and 8 is you would keep English, maths and science as the predominant subjects, with every other subject on a rota. Every term you remove a subject, like two or three subjects, and replace them with another one. This allows the students to then experience every subject. What years 7 and 8 should be focusing on is giving the students the experiences for every subject, meaning they get a feeling for all of them, meaning that then later on, when it comes to picking their subjects, they have a better idea on what they enjoy. Because if you didn't do dance, and then suddenly you introduce dance, how do these people know it if they maybe never tried it? I know dance technically is a more common thing to happen outside of school, because people might just do it for fun when they're listening to music, but you get the idea. Or like if they had never done history and then they get the option for history and they're kind of like, do I want to do it? It makes more sense that they have been able to experience it. Once again, I know history is usually a very compulsory one. Anyway, but that's what year 7 and 8 would do. Year 9 you get to choose. At this point, English, maths and science are heavily reduced. They're still there, but they're still compulsory, but they're just not in as much mass as they previously were in. It also means that we can then work these life lesson stuff into the spaces left behind by the reduction in English, maths and science. Then, for year 10, they get more options, or not in the sense of more options, but they can re-choose. Something I find is that some people choose it, like once again going with one of my friends, they're like, that they absolutely hate drama now. So, at the end of year 10, at the end of year 9, give them a choice to pick a whole bunch of new subjects. It would require, yes, there to be a split between the groups, because you can't put them with the normal group because of the fact they would be much further ahead, meaning you put them in a smaller group. These groups would also have different tests, which would have a different way of marking it. That means that they have less knowledge of the subject because they joined later on, or you task them with doing more homework to dedicate to the subject to try and catch up. One of those two could work. But when it comes to the end of year 9, when it comes to their second load of options, they can not. So basically, English, maths and science are no longer compulsory. They don't have to take them. Instead, anything that is required from those subjects, such as biology, stuff like teaching you how about infection and stuff, and how to treat stuff, like the heart stuff. They do a lot of stuff with like coronary heart disease, stuff like that. Moving those, or like English is stuff on maybe persuasive writing, and maths stuff with percentage changes, and just generally figuring out stuff like money and time. Move those into these life lesson ones, which allow people to still obviously experience them, but in a more useful way. Going into year 11 is the same thing, where you can still re-choose stuff, but now it's a lot less recommended to change your subjects because of the fact you're quite close to exams. But you still sort of can if you want. As a way also for these life lesson things, they would be a lot more focused onto actually teaching you stuff that you would require later on. But it will give you practicals. For instance, they could have it where you have to keep track of how much your family spends on food and stuff like that over a week or maybe a month. Or give you some sort of practical thing where maybe you need to look after a child. I think America does that. And then that way they experience it rather than just write about it. Same thing kind of could go with almost getting loans or paying bills. You actually learn how to do it in multiple different ways. Also that they should really shift the marking system. If, for instance, you're in foundation of science, or at least in foundation of any subject as far as I'm aware, you can only get, if you got 100% on your test, you would only get a 5. However, if you're on higher, I think if you get about 50% of your results, you'll get about a 5, maybe a 4. That isn't great, in the sense that it is so much easier to get a higher grade in a higher tier than it is a foundation tier. Foundation is meant to be easier, so why is it harder to get good grades? That I've always found really weird. In a way, you actually crush people's self-confidence because they're getting lower grades than if they were in the higher tier, where if they were getting those same number of marks, they would be getting much higher grades. I think the exam marking system would have to be shifted to allow people to more easily get these higher grades. That if you were in a foundation, yeah, you're not taught as much, but you can still learn you can still get as many marks. Maybe do something where you split the paper in half. You have the foundation half, and then you have the higher half, and if you want, you can go from the foundation half up into the higher half seamlessly. So it does go like foundation ends here, but if you keep going, then you can get more marks and you can get a higher grade. That could work. This one is very important because we do this in school now. We do at the school a voting thing where we look at issues and then we vote yes or no on if they need to be changed or if they should remain the same about certain issues. Thing is, this clearly isn't accurate as to how voting works. I think they really should teach us how to actually vote. A lot of this comes in year 9 in my mind. I don't know why, but I feel like that gives it enough time that they're not under stress of doing, trying to revise for exams, and still are a little bit more carefree. They kind of did that middle bit. But anyway, the voting system that I kind of think could work is, for instance, if you're going to get a new head teacher, having the students actually find out more about that head teacher and then they vote on one. So what I think they should do is either that, where you vote on your head teacher, which could still work, but obviously voting on who's going to run the school is a little bit different because you could have younger years not wanting that. But you could do something where when an election is actually happening, so for instance, if we have another vote on Brexit or something like that, we actually do our own school votes. Those can be added to the actual voting, which would sort of make sense, as the school would probably provide you with more information than the internet, and hopefully would be unbiased. But but doing stuff like if you had to vote on different parties, as in like just like when everyone else does the election, or maybe you do one every year where it's instead of which is obviously different from the voting of the actual elections, which I think are held every 4 years, or is that the Olympics? There's my point. That way, if an election does come up, then there could be a thing where I was like, okay, we can vote, and it would actually be added to the votes for this election. Because, yeah, there was like this big debate thing. I don't know if it's still being debated, but it was a little while ago. It was like, oh yeah, should 16-year-olds be allowed to vote? I'm 16, I have no clue about any of the parties. If I was told, oh yeah, I can vote, go vote now, I would probably vote Labour Party. Why? Because the name sounds like something I support. Like, yeah, it's just annoying trying to find this kind of stuff out, and I think schools should do something to actually help people prepare. Voting is something that is fundamental to our country, and yet I'm pretty sure nobody in my year or below actually knows how to vote. Like, we had a voting thing at the school recently, as in it was an actual thing where people just, like, the general public came into the school to use one of the rooms as a voting booth. I didn't know that was happening. Basically, no one knew it was happening in our school. We were just kind of there like, oh, wait, so there's a vote going on? What for? We didn't know. Apparently it was the local MP. So, you kind of see what I mean. We don't know how we would find out about this information. And I think it's the school's responsibility to do that. I have heard from, like, there are some arguments going around that it's technically responsibilities of the parents to do this. That's not really true, though. The fact is that some parents don't care, God forbid it, that you're an orphan. So I think schools need to take that responsibility because it's compulsory for you to go to school. It's not compulsory for your parents to teach you how to actually live in the modern world. And considering how our school motto is like something like developing respectful, successful students who thrive in the modern world, I actually think once we leave this school, we're not going to thrive in the modern world because we're not going to actually know how to live in the modern world. We're going to have, I'm going to know who Elizabeth's suitors were, but I'm not going to know how to pay my taxes. Or, you don't pay taxes, well, you do. I won't know how to pay my bills. You get the point. I'm going to send this, after I upload this video, I'm going to have it sent to my school and hope that they actually listen to me. I think the only thing really left to say is that I hope that they change it because this system I don't think works, and I've heard it from my parents as well, that it is true that it's not utilising what it could do. The education system could really prepare us for our future, but it doesn't. And it feels like we really could. It would really make sense to teach us how to actually survive in our world. Because if it's not become super clear recently with stuff like global warming, the adults haven't done a great job at looking after the planet, and kind of have left it to us to fix their mistakes. Anyway, thanks all for watching. I'll see you all later. Bye.